values here. Some of them we're going to use now, some of them we're going to use later, some of them we're not going to use at all. So right now the ones that we care about are the median over here with the MED, and the mean. They call it X bar. Technically, even if it's a population, it'll still just be the X bar because it's calculated the same way, and so they don't write the same thing twice with two different letters to denote it. So even if it's a population like ours is, a mu, we'll still just look for X bar, just because that's the one that they just default to. These two here with the capital sigma, we're not going to use those, so just disregard those ones. These two we're going to use in 3.1 when we talk about standard deviations, and then this whole block right here we're going to do at the end, 3.4 and 3.5 I think, later on. But for this section all we need to know is the mean and the median. So here we have an example. It's a smaller example, so we could technically do it by hand, but we're not going to. We're going to do it in our calculator. So first thing we need to do is put our values into L1. Have we talked about how to put values into L1 yet? Did? Okay. All right, so step one, put everything into L1. So in your calculator, you'll put everything into L1, your first list. So let me get out of here real quick. So those are my 5 numbers. They tell me it's a population. Did they? Yeah, it says the population of exam scores is given with those 5. The reason it's a population is because we're looking at this one student and their exam scores. Well, they only took 5 exams. That population isn't too big, so we don't need to draw a sample because it's only 5. So in this case, we can still do the population because you don't need a sample. Okay, so just to recall, to get to your L1, you'll go to Stat, and under Edit, just go to the first one. You've got all of your numbers here in L1. I've got old numbers from a different example, so I'm going to go up to L1 and I'm going to clear and enter to get rid of all of those numbers. Don't delete L1 because then it'll be gone. You get it back, but it just takes a few extra steps to get it back. All right, so I'm going to put my numbers in, 78, 53, 32, 68. Okay, and then down here they have Stat and Calc. So to actually get to one of our stats, you'll go to Stat again, go over to where it says Calc, because we're calculating something now. And under 1 bar stats, that's what you're going to select is just 1 bar stats. Now mine comes up and it looks like this. So if you have an older calculator, not like really old, but like not made in the last couple years, or maybe some newer ones, they still have the old programming. Where it looks like this, you just do 1 bar stats and then just hit enter when it comes up on your screen, and everything's going to come up nice and easy like that. If you have a newer one, they made it a little more user-friendly. There are some downfalls to it, which we'll get to in 3.3. But for now, it's kind of nice. If you have a screen that pops up like this, where it asks you about your list and your frequency list, your list needs to be L1, so you'll put that in. If it's not, it should be defaulted to L1, but if it's not, just hit second one to get L1 in that case. And then your frequency list, you want that to be completely blank, because you don't have a frequency list for this, because you don't have a frequency distribution. And so that's, frequency list is what throws people off a lot with these types of things. So this should be L1, this should be blank, and then when you hit calculate, then you'll get screens that look just like this. At the very top, we get X bar equals 81.5. I didn't write that down on the notes. So here, I guess I'll just do it here. Here we get X bar. R equals 81.2. That's going to be our mean. And then our median M is going to be 83, because that's the median. Actually, I made a mistake. Sorry. This is a population. So this is technically supposed to be mu, the Greek letter mu. So it is a population, so it should be mu, not x bar. When you go through and calculate it, they don't want to write x bar equals 81.2, mu equals 81.2, because it's the same number. So again, just when you look for the mean, just look for x bar, and then you just have to decide which notation is appropriate to use for that one. And then your median is down here. That's not obvious right away. So the first screen that you get here, it has your mean, things we don't need, standard deviation, which we're going to get later. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, you get these values here, which, like I said, we're going to use in 3.4 and 3.5. But median is kind of grouped with these ones. So the median is right there. You have to scroll down to actually get it. All right. Is anybody having trouble getting these screens to pull up the correct way? Are you getting different numbers? Are you getting errors, anything like that? Anybody delete their L1? Nobody yet? Okay. Oh, I forgot it does that. Okay, so now we're going to look at what happens when we get a new person. Okay, so we're going back to our web development company that's got 7 people in it, and so now we're going to look to see what happens if you throw in a really big number, what changes with your mean and your median. So they've got, the 70-minute person that they had before, he didn't really work out, I guess. He got fired, and they got a new person with 130. So the 70-minute person that they used before, just forget about him. And this is the 8th person, this 130-minute commute. They're going to ask, how does this impact the value of the mean and the median? Well, so without this person here, we already know what our mean and our median are because we calculated those previously, 24.9 and 23 minutes. We found those on a previous slide. But now we need to figure out what it is with this 130-minute commute person. So we're going to throw in that 8th person. You can do that by hand if you want to. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in my calculator. So I'll go to Stat, Edit, highlight my L1, hit clear enter, and type in those numbers. And then at the very bottom, I'm going to type in that 130 as my last person, so that now I have 8 of them all together. So here in my first list, L1, my 8th entry is 130. That's what that bottom row represents. All right, so to calculate my mean and my median, I'll go to Stat, Calc, 1-bar Stats. I'm just going to hit enter again, and it should pop up for me. If you get that screen that comes up intermittently, it's going to be your list is L1, your frequency list should be deleted. So now in this case, if you look at the top, my X bar, it should technically be mu because it's a population, but my mean is going to be 38 minutes, and my median, down here at the bottom is 24.5. So my median after the new hire is 24.5 minutes. So originally we had these 7 people who were averaging about 23 to 25 minutes, depending on which one you use, for their morning commute. When we threw in this new person who had a really long commute, it kind of changed these a little bit. So we're going to look at what this large number did to our mean and our median. That's going to bring us our next definition.